The Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio, known for its tranquil sanctity, found itself thrust into an unexpected storm. A single piece of footage from a security camera disrupted the peace it was revered for. The video captured Sister Clara, a figure of unwavering faith, kneeling in prayer. But it wasn't her devotion that caught attention, it was the rounded curve of her abdomen. Whispers quickly turned into a wave of speculation. Could Sister Clara, a respected nun bound by sacred vows, be pregnant? The convent became a divided house. Some nuns stood by Clara, citing her history of integrity and devotion, while others were gripped by doubt, questioning how such an event could align with her commitments. Mother Superior Juliana, a woman of wisdom and fairness, sought the truth. Clara, she asked, her tone firm but compassionate, is there something you wish to share? But Clara, her eyes calm and unwavering, offered no answers. Trust me, was all she said. Beyond the convent, the whispers grew louder. The media took hold of the story, transforming it into a public scandal. Headlines speculated wildly, and public opinion was sharply divided. But what no one knew was that behind Clara's silence lay an untold story, a narrative of bravery, compassion, and a selfless act to protect the vulnerable. Amid the rumors and doubt, Clara harbored a truth that could shake not just the convent, but the world watching from beyond its walls. The video of Sister Clara, kneeling in prayer with her rounded abdomen, spread quickly, plunging the Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio into chaos. The sight of a nun, bound by sacred vows, seemingly pregnant, ignited a firestorm of speculation. Inside the convent, the once united sisters found themselves divided. Some defended Clara vehemently, pointing to her years of unshakable faith and dedication to her calling. Clara is one of us, one sister said firmly. We should trust her. But others struggled to reconcile the image with the vows they all held dear. How can she remain silent when her silence causes us all to suffer? Another asked, her voice heavy with doubt. Mother Superior Juliana, a pillar of both authority and compassion, summoned Clara to her office. Sitting across from the young nun, she leaned forward, her piercing eyes searching Clara's face. Clara, she began, her tone both stern and imploring, I need the truth. The convent depends on it. What is happening? Clara met her gaze, her eyes betraying both pain and resolve. I cannot explain, she replied quietly, but please, Mother, trust me. Outside the convent, the frenzy only grew. Journalists gathered at the gates, cameras flashing, eager to unravel the mystery. Social media platforms buzzed with speculation. Some condemned Clara outright, labeling her a hypocrite and a disgrace. Others, however, praised her, guessing at deeper, unseen reasons for her actions. Maybe she's protecting someone, one post read. We don't know the full story. Within the convent walls, Clara bore the weight of the mounting tension. The whispered accusations from some of the sisters stung, but it was the lingering uncertainty in the eyes of even her supporters that hurt most. Still, Clara kept her silence, knowing the truth could not yet come to light. Beneath the surface of this growing storm, Clara carried out a secret mission. Each evening, when the convent grew quiet, she would slip away to a small, secluded room in the shadows of the church. There, hidden from prying eyes, was Maria, a frightened young woman whose desperate plight had brought her to the convent's doors weeks earlier. Maria was heavily pregnant and fleeing a dangerous man named Rinaldi, who claimed to have control over her. Clara had found her one stormy night, trembling and soaked to the bone, huddled on the convent steps. Maria's story was one of fear, abuse, and a longing to protect the child she carried. Clara had taken her in, offering not only shelter but also the unwavering promise of safety. Now, as Clara brought food and comfort to Maria, she could see the fear in the young woman's eyes. What if he finds me? Maria whispered, clutching her swollen belly. He won't, Clara replied firmly, her voice a quiet force of reassurance. You're safe here. But Clara knew the walls of the convent could only protect Maria for so long. The world outside was closing in, and it was only a matter of time before Rinaldi, or worse, the media, uncovered the truth. Even so, Clara remained steadfast. Her vow to protect Maria and her unborn child was a sacred one she would honor no matter the cost. As the days passed, the weight of Clara's silence pressed down on the convent. Sisters who had once stood firmly by her began to falter, their faith in her secrecy waning. Mother Juliana, too, found herself torn between her duty to uphold the convent's integrity and her growing suspicion that Clara's silence hid something greater than they could understand. Outside, the journalists continued to probe, and the public's curiosity showed no sign of abating. The Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio, once a sanctuary of peace, was now a focal point of controversy. But within its walls, in the quiet moments shared between Clara and Maria, another story unfolded, a story of courage, sacrifice, and the lengths one would go to protect the innocent. Though Clara's path was fraught with uncertainty and the risk of exposure loomed ever closer, she remained resolute. She knew the truth would come to light in time, and when it did, she could only hope it would be seen for what it truly was, an act of profound love and unwavering faith. Maria had arrived at the gates of the convent under the cover of darkness, her face pale with fear and her body trembling with exhaustion. The child she carried was her beacon of hope, but it was also the reason she was being hunted. Rinaldi, a man of immense power and cruelty, had tormented her for months. When she finally managed to escape his grasp, she had nowhere to go but to the Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio, a place she had heard could offer sanctuary to the desperate. Sister Clara had been the one to find her, huddled on the convent steps, drenched from the rain. Maria had looked up at her with pleading eyes, barely able to speak through her sobs. Clara had seen countless faces in her years at the convent, but something about Maria's desperation struck her deeply. Without hesitation, she led her inside, offering a warm blanket and a quiet room away from prying eyes. Night after night, Clara would visit Maria, carrying trays of food and soft words of reassurance. In those quiet hours, Maria began to open up about the horrors she had endured. She spoke of Rinaldi's cruelty, the threats he had made, and his chilling promise to take her child away from her once it was born. The more Maria shared, the more Clara's resolve to protect her grew. One night, as Maria sat on the edge of the small cot in her room, she looked up at Clara, tears streaming down her face. "Why are you doing this for me?" she asked, her voice breaking. Clara knelt beside her, taking Maria's trembling hands in her own. "Because you deserve protection," she said gently. "No one should face this alone. You and your child have the right to a life free from fear." Maria's tears flowed freely as she whispered, "I don't know how to thank you." "Your safety is all the thanks I need," Clara replied, her voice steady. But outside the sanctuary of the convent walls, the danger was closing in. Rinaldi, furious over Maria's disappearance, had launched a relentless search. He used his wealth and influence to gather information, eventually discovering her location. When his informants told him that Maria was hiding within the convent, his anger boiled over. Rinaldi knew that a convent was no ordinary place. It was a sacred space, and breaching it without justification would risk public outcry. But Rinaldi was not a man who accepted obstacles easily. He began devising ways to infiltrate the sanctuary without drawing suspicion. At the same time, Maria's fear grew. She knew Rinaldi would not give up, and each knock on the convent's heavy doors made her heart race. She confided her fears to Clara, who assured her that the convent was a place of refuge and that its walls had protected countless others before her. However, Clara knew the reality. The walls of the convent, though sturdy, were no match for a man with Rinaldi's resources and determination. She began to take extra precautions, moving Maria to a room deeper within the convent and ensuring only a select few sisters knew of her presence. Meanwhile, the whispers among the nuns about Clara's secret continued to grow. They had noticed her late-night absences, the trays of food she carried, and the weight of worry etched into her face. Some began to suspect the truth, while others speculated about more scandalous possibilities. Despite the growing tension, Clara remained unwavering. Her focus was on Maria and her unborn child. She spent hours each day praying for guidance, asking for the strength to protect the young woman who had come to her in need. One evening, as Clara sat with Maria, they heard the distant sound of voices outside the convent. Maria's eyes widened with fear. "It's him," she whispered, clutching Clara's arm. Clara listened carefully, her heart pounding. Though she couldn't be certain it was Rinaldi, she knew they needed to be cautious. "Stay here," she said firmly. "I'll handle this." As she made her way toward the entrance, Clara's mind raced. She prayed silently for wisdom and courage, knowing the confrontation ahead could change everything. At the gates, a man in a sharp suit stood with a calm but calculating demeanor. Rinaldi. He introduced himself as a concerned relative searching for a woman who had gone missing. His voice was smooth, but his eyes betrayed his true intentions. The Mother Superior, Juliana, met him with a measured gaze. "I'm sorry, sir," she said firmly. "This is a house of God, and we do not permit unscheduled visits. If you have concerns, you may leave a message, and we will consider your request." Rinaldi smiled, though it did not reach his eyes. "I appreciate your position," he said, "but this matter is urgent. I'm sure you understand." Juliana did not waver. "If there is someone here who matches your description, rest assured they are safe. Beyond that, I have nothing more to say." Rinaldi's smile faded, and his eyes hardened. "Very well," he said, turning to leave. But Clara, watching from the shadows, knew this was far from over. Back in Maria's room, Clara reassured her that everything was under control, though deep down, she knew the battle had only just begun. Rinaldi would return, and when he did, Clara would be ready. She had made a promise to protect Maria and her child, and she would honor that promise, no matter the cost. The sun filtered through the stained glass windows of the convent, casting colorful patterns on the stone floors. It was a peaceful morning like any other until the heavy knock at the convent gates broke the silence. The sisters exchanged wary glances as two men in plain clothes, accompanied by a uniformed police officer, entered the hallowed grounds. Among them was Rinaldi, his tailored suit and composed demeanor masking the storm brewing beneath his calm exterior. The visitors were ushered into Mother Juliana's office, a room that bore the weight of decades of quiet leadership. The air was thick with tension as Rinaldi spoke. "We are here to retrieve Maria," he announced, his tone authoritative. "She is under my care, and I demand her return." Mother Juliana met his gaze without flinching. Her voice was measured but firm. "This is a house of God, Mr. Rinaldi, not a courtroom. If Maria is here, she is here by her own will. No one is held against their wishes within these walls." One of the men accompanying Rinaldi produced a folder, placing it on Juliana's desk. "Maria is involved in a legal matter, and we have every right to take her into custody," he stated. His words were deliberate, yet the Mother Superior sensed the undercurrent of coercion. The tension in the room escalated as Sister Clara was summoned. She entered with her head held high, though her heart pounded. Clara knew this confrontation was inevitable, and she was prepared to face the consequences of her actions. "Clara," Mother Juliana began, her tone questioning yet calm. "These men claim Maria is here. What do you have to say?" Clara took a deep breath, her voice steady as she spoke. "Maria is here, Mother. I brought her into this convent because she was in grave danger. She sought refuge, and I could not turn her away. If given the chance, I would do it again." Rinaldi's composure cracked as he stepped forward, his voice sharp. "This is a violation of the law. You have no right to harbor her." Clara turned to him, her eyes unwavering. "I protected her because no one else would. She was fleeing from abuse, from fear. She is not an object for you to control. She is a human being." Before Rinaldi could retort, the door creaked open. Maria stepped inside, her hands trembling but her eyes resolute. The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. "I will not go back with you," Maria said, her voice quivering at first but gaining strength with each word. "You threatened me. You told me you'd take my baby away. I ran because I was terrified of what you would do to us. Rinaldi's face darkened, his frustration evident. Maria, you misunderstand. Everything I've done is for your benefit. No. Maria interrupted, her voice firm. You've done nothing but hurt me. I'm done being afraid of you. The police officer, who had been silently observing the exchange, stepped forward. He placed a firm hand on Rinaldi's shoulder, signaling him to step back. Mr. Rinaldi, there are serious allegations against you. Until these matters are fully investigated, Maria will remain in protective custody. Rinaldi glared at the officer, but he knew there was little he could do without risking further exposure. He straightened his jacket and spoke through gritted teeth. This isn't over. As Rinaldi and his entourage were escorted out, Maria let out a shaky breath, her hands clutching the edge of the desk for support. Clara moved to her side, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. Mother Juliana studied the two women before her. Her stern expression softened as she addressed Clara. You broke the rules of this convent, Clara. You acted without consulting anyone, putting this entire community at risk. Clara nodded, her gaze steady. I understand, Mother. But I couldn't turn her away. I would accept any consequence to ensure her safety. Juliana's eyes shifted to Maria, her tone now gentler. And you, child. You have shown great courage today. You are safe here for now, but we must ensure a more permanent solution for your safety. Maria nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you, Mother. Thank you for believing me. Later that evening, as the convent settled back into a tense quiet, Clara knelt in the chapel. The weight of the day bore heavily on her, but she felt no regret. Her actions had protected Maria and her unborn child, and for that, she was grateful. Mother Juliana entered the chapel and stood silently behind Clara for a moment before speaking. You've put this community under great strain, Clara. There will be consequences. But you also reminded us of our greater purpose, to protect and serve those in need. Clara looked up at her, her voice quiet but firm. I could not have done anything else, Mother. It was the right thing. Juliana placed a hand on Clara's shoulder. Sometimes, the right thing comes with great sacrifice. But you acted with courage and compassion, and that will not be forgotten. The next morning, Maria was safely relocated to a secure shelter where she could rebuild her life. The convent, though scarred by the events, began to heal. Sister Clara's actions became a subject of both criticism and admiration among her peers. While some viewed her as reckless, others saw her as a true example of faith and humanity. As the days passed, the story of what had transpired within the convent walls spread beyond its gates. But what began as a tale of scandal transformed into a story of resilience, compassion, and the unwavering fight to protect the vulnerable. Maria's transfer to a secure shelter brought a sense of relief, though the weight of her own actions still lingered with Clara. She knew Maria was now safe, but the consequences of sheltering her within the convent had come crashing down on Clara's shoulders. The quiet, holy halls of the convent were filled with hushed whispers and divided opinions. Some of the nuns were uncomfortable with the choices Clara had made, believing that she had put the entire community at risk by breaking the convent's rules. To them, the safety of their religious sanctuary was paramount, and Clara's actions, though motivated by compassion, were seen as reckless. Others, however, understood the deeper truth. Clara had acted out of love and faith, protecting an innocent life in need of refuge. The divide among the nuns grew as they discussed Clara's courage and the risks she had taken. Those who condemned her spoke with authority, while those who praised her spoke with a quieter reverence, aware of the sacrifice Clara had made. But the real impact was felt most strongly by Clara herself, who had given everything to protect Maria, knowing that in doing so, she had broken sacred vows. One evening, as Clara sat alone in the chapel, the quiet solitude offering her a moment of peace, Mother Juliana entered. She looked weary, the lines of responsibility and concern etched deeply into her face. Juliana had witnessed the turmoil caused by Clara's actions and, though shaken, had never once let her composure falter. You broke the rules, Mother Juliana said softly, her voice carrying both weight and understanding. But you also reminded us of what it means to live with compassion. Your actions were not without fault, but they were guided by faith and love. Clara did not immediately respond. She sat still, her fingers moving absent-mindedly over the beads of her rosary, the rhythm offering her a sense of quiet assurance. Her mind wandered, reflecting on everything that had happened, the fear, the risks, the choices. But even now, in the face of her consequences, Clara had no regrets. Her actions had been guided by an unshakable belief that she was doing the right thing. She had trusted her heart, despite knowing the repercussions. Her eyes closed briefly as she whispered a silent prayer, giving thanks for the strength she had found, and for the opportunity to protect someone who had no other place to turn. Mother Juliana remained silent, standing beside Clara, both of them understanding the profound truth that had emerged from the crisis. Despite the tension, despite the divided opinions within the convent, Clara had reminded them all of a deeper lesson: faith without compassion was incomplete. Juliana's gaze softened, a flicker of something akin to pride in her eyes. She knew, in her heart, that Clara had acted with the courage of her convictions, and that was something to be respected. The silence that followed was not one of tension, but of mutual understanding. Both women, bound by faith, shared a moment of quiet reflection on the sacrifices that sometimes came with doing what was right. And though the convent would never be the same, they both knew that the lesson learned from this experience would stay with them forever. In the end, Clara had risked everything for Maria, and in doing so, had reminded everyone that love, when true and unwavering, could sometimes challenge the very foundation upon which one's life was built. But it was always worth it. The story of Sister Clara and Maria did not unfold as a scandal that would be remembered for its controversy or shame. Instead, it transformed into something far more profound, a tale of love, sacrifice, and the courage to protect those most vulnerable. As the days passed, the media frenzy eventually died down, but the impact of Clara's actions remained, resonating deeply within the walls of the Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio. Opinions among the convent's community remained divided. Some nuns still questioned Clara's decision, unable to reconcile her act of defiance with their understanding of the convent's sacred rules. They could not easily forgive her for putting the sanctity of their sanctuary in jeopardy. But for others, the lesson was undeniable. Clara had shown them what it meant to truly live their vows, not just through prayers and rituals, but by putting faith into action. In the face of danger, she had chosen to act with compassion, even when it meant breaking the rules. And that was something that could not be dismissed. Maria, safe in the shelter where she was being cared for, was forever grateful to the woman who had protected her when no one else would. Though her life had been torn apart by fear and abuse, she had found a new hope through Clara's unwavering support. Maria would rebuild her life, and her story would always be intertwined with Clara's, a reminder of the power of selflessness and the incredible strength it takes to protect others. Meanwhile, in the convent, peace slowly returned, though it was a different peace now. The once quiet halls of the Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio no longer echoed with only prayers and hymns. They now held the lessons of Clara's bravery, lessons about standing up for what is right, even in the face of overwhelming odds. While some of the nuns may still have been uncertain of Clara's actions, they could not deny the undeniable truth: compassion had triumphed over fear. As the weeks passed, the community began to heal. The discussions that had once divided them slowly transformed into reflections on faith and the true meaning of love. The lesson Clara had taught them was not just a fleeting moment. It became part of the very fabric of the convent. It was a lesson that would live on for years, passed down from one generation of nuns to the next. Clara herself, though no longer the subject of intense scrutiny, carried with her the weight of the decision she had made. But she also carried the quiet satisfaction of knowing she had done what was right, guided not by the fear of consequences but by the belief that every life deserved dignity and protection. There were no regrets in her heart, only the deep sense that her actions had been guided by a love far greater than anything she had ever known. The legacy of Clara's bravery would echo far beyond the walls of the convent, reaching into the lives of those who heard her story. It would inspire many to question what it truly meant to live by faith, to protect the vulnerable, and to act with love, even when the world was not ready to understand. In the end, the story of Sister Clara and Maria was not one of scandal or disgrace. It was a story of hope, of the transformative power of compassion, and of the profound impact one person's courage could have on the lives of others. And in the quiet halls of the Church of San Benedetto del Silenzio, that peace would endure, forever intertwined with the bravery and love that Clara had shown in the face of unimaginable challenges.